don't know why. I always wondered because it seems so natural to me, but I don't know, it's not feminine maybe, that's why. I mean, to get out and really get...
What if I told you the legend of Janis Joplin isn't just about a powerhouse voice, but also a cautionary tale of fortune earned and lost? From Port Arthur's pariah to Woodstock's queen, Janis carved her name into rock history with raw honesty. Yet behind the mic, her finances and lifestyle told a different story. Picture her tearing down stage barriers, clutching a bottle of Southern Comfort in one hand and a check for $30,000 in the other, only to watch that check vanish through studio sessions, fur coats, and late-night benders. You won't believe how little she invested in assets that could have safeguarded her legacy. Stay tuned, because this story is more than a trip down memory lane. It's a fast-paced plunge into how one of the 60s greatest voices managed her wealth. Despite earning upwards of $1.2 million by the time she recorded Pearl, equivalent to nearly $9 million today, Janis never owned a private jet or a sprawling Malibu estate. Instead, she poured earnings into her touring rig, credit card debts, and medical bills. Yet she did acquire a 1968 Cadillac DeVille convertible, customized with psychedelic paint, her only major vehicle purchase. Her watch collection was modest, a gold-plated Bulova gifted by fans, later sold to cover a hotel bill. What's more shocking is that her life insurance policy, barely $100,000, was a fraction of the risk she carried on tour. But here's the twist. After her death, savvy managers turned her catalog into a perpetual money machine, generating over $300,000 in annual royalties by licensing her voice to commercials, films, and tribute albums. Right when you think the tale ends there, consider Janis's real estate footprint. She rented a Hollywood Hills bungalow for $200 a month, barely scratching the surface of property ownership. Unlike today's stars who diversify across beachfront condos and ski chalets, Janis never signed a mortgage. When she co-financed Bessie Smith's gravestone with $1,500 in 1970, it was a bold philanthropic move, but hardly a financial investment. Fast forward to now, that same plot in Philadelphia is valued at $12,000, a tiny relic compared to modern celebrity estates worth tens of millions. And yet, in honoring Bessie, Janis demonstrated the ultimate ROI, immortality through legacy. You might be wondering about business ventures. Did she ever launch a clothing line or a record label? The answer is no. Janis's entrepreneurial spirit manifested in informal collaborations, late-night jam sessions that produced breakthrough live recordings, and an unfinished autobiography she hoped to monetize. Sadly, none of these dreams materialized into structured deals or ownership stakes. Contrast that with Jim Morrison, her infamous rival whom she once publicly denounced, but who, after his death, saw Doors merchandise sales skyrocket to generate over $4 million in annual revenue. Morrison's estate, helmed by his family, invested in licensing agreements, TV specials, and even a fragrance line. What financial lesson do we draw? Formalize your brand and protect it with legal structures before you're gone. But let's circle back to Janis. Although she lacked corporate safeguards, her estate did secure a modest catalog ownership agreement with Columbia Records, ensuring her voice endures. Current estimates place her net worth, managed by trusts, at around $5 million, thanks to careful royalty collection and selective brand partnerships, including a limited edition Southern Comfort run that netted over $250,000 in royalties last year alone. She may have missed out on private jets, but her voice now soars on airplanes worldwide as part of classic rock playlists, turning sorrow into a steady revenue stream. Here's what happened next for those who follow her blueprint. Diversify your earnings, invest in appreciating assets, and never underestimate the value of insurance. Janis's $100,000 life policy pales beside modern stars who secure multi-million-dollar coverage on health, voice, and brand, protecting assets ranging from homes to tour income. In learning from Janis, today's artists lock in multimodal policies that cover everything from canceled shows to intellectual property theft. They sign equity agreements for their music catalog up front, ensuring long-term revenue, whether they're center stage or long gone. You won't believe how the story twists when we compare Janis's deals to Leonard Cohen's approach. After that fateful Chelsea hotel night, Cohen negotiated a 10-year publishing contract that now brings his estate an estimated $1 million annually. Cohen invested in real estate across Montreal and Los Angeles, owning a mid-century modern home in Brentwood, currently valued at $6 million. He wore custom Patek Philippe watches and leased Gulfstream jets for his world tours, choices that buffered his wealth from market swings. That stark contrast underscores a critical insight. In entertainment, fame and fortune are fleeting unless anchored by strategic planning. Forget cliches about tortured geniuses. The truth is that even the most gifted must build a business engine. Janis's impassioned co-production of Pearl cost her nothing in producer fees, but everything in missed royalties, because she signed away publishing rights for a quick cash advance. Today's savvy artists negotiate joint publishing and master ownership, earning up to 50% of streaming revenues. They form LLCs for each project, limit personal liability, and secure health and disability insurance that cover rehab costs, something Janis desperately needed but lacked. By the time her career exploded, Janis could have saved 5 to 10% of each paycheck into diversified portfolios, stocks, bonds, and rental real estate. Instead, she relied on alcohol to dull her pain, ultimately fueling her overdose at 27. Mixed within that tragedy lies an evergreen lesson: always allocate for savings before spending on lifestyle. Imagine if she'd held on to just $100,000 of her early earnings, invested at a modest 6% annual return. Today, that nest egg would be nearly $1.7 million, enough to fund a legacy museum or scholarship in her name. So, what's the closing note of Janis Joplin's financial symphony? Even the rawest talent must marry creativity with commerce. Invest in assets that appreciate, protect your work with airtight contracts, and shield yourself with insurance tailored to an artist's risks. Let Janis's journey, her triumphs, tragedies, and posthumous triumphs guide you toward building a wealth structure that outlives the stage lights. Remember, the loudest voice can also be the wisest investor. Years later, that night would echo through rock history like an unresolved chord. What if Janis and Jim had worked together? What if their energy had been channeled into a creative masterpiece? But that wasn't the legacy Janis wanted. She didn't just fight back for herself. She fought for every woman who had to laugh off aggression to keep the peace, who had to smile through fear in dressing rooms and darkened corridors. Her career, though tragically brief, wasn't about compliance. It was rebellion wrapped in soul and blues. And while her net worth barely touched $250,000 at the time of her death, today her estate has ballooned to over $5 million, with future projections estimating double that figure due to continuous reissues, biopics, and cultural retrospectives. Janis didn't live to see her own iconography, but every dollar earned by her legacy screams louder than Morrison ever could. And what of Morrison? The man once hailed as the Lizard King now stands on shakier ground. For decades, his legend was polished by nostalgia, by adoring fans and stoned reminiscence. But in the clear light of 2025, we're forced to examine the damage behind the poetry. Jim Morrison's estate is still valued at roughly $20 million, driven by record sales, licensing deals, and cult devotion. But no amount of financial clout can silence the voices now coming forward. Voices like Judy Huddleston, who carry stories not of fame and creativity, but of manipulation, trauma, and fear. These aren't easy truths to face, but in the age of accountability, every myth is being unmasked. Even the rock gods are being asked, what did your art cost others? The revelations have also sparked uncomfortable comparisons. Consider the recent resurgence in Bob Dylan's legacy. A man equally enigmatic, but who's managed to preserve mystique without the same residue of harm. Or even David Bowie, whose controversial past is now being re-examined through a similar lens. The world isn't as quick to look away anymore. And Jim Morrison, once the ultimate symbol of untamed rebellion, now finds himself at the heart of a conversation not about freedom, but about consent, ego, and consequence. In the most shocking twist of all, Morrison's estate has reportedly been in quiet talks to fund a museum in his honor, complete with rare letters, unseen footage, and immersive concert experiences. But with recent backlash, insiders claim the project may be stalled. Can a legacy be rebranded when its foundation is so cracked? Or will the truth finally be what's remembered most? And then there's the haunting irony. For all of Morrison's attempts to dominate the women around him, it is Janis who remains the stronger voice in death. Her grit, her vulnerability, and yes, her refusal to back down have made her more relevant than ever. While his name may hang on dorm room posters, hers echoes in feminist ballads, in defiant documentaries, and in a cultural shift toward calling things what they are. So the next time someone romanticizes that night in Hidden Hills as just another rock and roll story, remember this: it wasn't mythology. It was a woman taking back her power. And that, more than any song or scandal, is the truth that will outlive them both.